So, I don't know all of you, I know some of you. I'm Yaakov Sloman, I'm the Perl Foundation Community Advocate. So, I'm community advocate because, unlike other communities that claim they have managers, I know the Perl community cannot be managed, so we're not doing that. And actually, the Perl community shouldn't be managed because that's not the nature of the Perl community. We don't have a top-down hierarchical community at all. So it's really difficult to even imagine what that would mean to be a community manager. So my role is to find the different parts of the Perl community and try to find out what they need and what sort of things they can contribute and bring them together and help them understand more about, everybody assumes that their part of the Perl community is the Perl community and that's how everything is, and it turns out it's not. And I'm glad we're not all Perl monks, for example. Not that there's anything wrong with Perl monks. So, we have a community advocacy committee which was just relatively recently formed. And we're here after making a whirlwind tour of the East Coast, from New York to Philadelphia, to seeking to visit our sponsors. Linode have been so incredibly generous with the community in particular. They pay for a lot of community events. They've been excellent. And now here, my first PPW. I'm an observant Jew, so part of the problem is weekends include Sabbath. So we stopped and then quickly drove here in a hurry to get here for the Sunday conference. So, I have a question. What is the difference? And by the way, my slides are in a somewhat experimental format for me, because some of them are going to go quick, some of them go slow. There'll be a lot of talk on some and not a lot on others. So if I screw up, that's why. What is the difference between a pear and a fruit? Somebody have an answer?
You only pick up a pear on 13th Street during the daytime?
That's one answer, not the usual one. Right, so obviously it's really clear. There's not really a difference between a pear and a fruit unless you want to point out that a fruit is a general case and a pear is a specific case. So that leads to the question about scripts. Now this is somewhat controversial because the truth is that there's an idea in the Perl community that scripts are effective programs. Okay? But I don't think so. Because if you look at how the word script is used in less ideological terms in the programming community, it's somewhat different. So I'm going to come up with a taxonomy, and I'll admit this is really arbitrary, but you all use arbitrary taxonomies anyway, and I'm going to change it. Okay, we're going to use different words to describe this, and you'll see why. And I'm hoping you'll participate because I want more people in the community. We have applications versus scripts, and the difference between these is fairly obvious just looking at them. You might start to get the idea of what I mean by script here as opposed to application. People sometimes use the word script properly and sometimes improperly. So applications have intrinsic value. They do something themselves. Mostly. There's no clear bright line here that we can draw between the application and the script. You can always find edge cases, and there are mixes all over. But the truth is, applications generally do something useful for you. Scripts have extrinsic value. They deal with other things. When an assistant administrator talks about a script, they're talking about probably a program that starts and stops processes, looks for things, checks conditions, and then restarts things, that kind of stuff. So when someone comes to the Perl community and asks about how do I write a script, they often get jumped on and told, you can't write scripts in Perl, it's not scripture. Which is about as insane as you can get from a marketing perspective. We want new people to be involved in Perl. Because how many people here started out with Perl scripts? Okay, right. But today you don't write any scripts at all, you write all programs. Scripts are programs. No, the truth is that systems administrators want to write scripts. And they don't want to be told that they have to learn a programming language to write scripts. But we need to teach them how to program well, because scripts are just a type of program. And if we can talk to systems administrators that appear in our various venues and tell them, you know what, and I'll tell you, let me make an aside. What prompted me to think about this is that there's a very active LinkedIn Perl community. There are a lot of different groups on Perl or LinkedIn, that involve themselves with Perl, and one of them is just a Perl, just called Perl. And a programmer from India, who was a serious guy, worked for a university, I think, came in and said, what is the difference between a script and a program? And if there's a difference, what are the relevant subject or content areas? And the response was, there's no such thing as a script, it's only a program. They quoted something, I don't know if it's powerful enough, but quoted Larry saying that Ada Lovelace wouldn't know what you were talking about. If you said script, she'd think you were talking about Shakespeare. I don't know if that's true or not, but all sorts of answers, and all of them involve trying to debunk the idea that Perl could be used for scripting. Which I think is really strange, because here's you guys coming in and saying, hey, I want to learn about Perl, and even asking a relevant question and got a terrible answer. But it's a very typical answer in our community to say, you can't write scripts because scripts are defective programs, they're just bad programs. Now, the truth is, there's some value to that, but it has to be communicated in a different way. A lot of times, scripting is done poorly. But a lot of times, programming is done poorly too. I mean, how many garbage applications have you seen written? So, we want to teach people to program well, regardless of whether they're programming with scripts or they're programming for application purposes. Sysadmins become programmers. How many people started out as sysadmin and ended up as developer? Okay, one, okay. How many people have done sysadmin work in this room? Okay, so, and how many people have a title that includes or involved with DevOps? Nobody in this room? Okay, well, one person who's afraid to say. So, I gotta tell you that the DevOps area is the only growth area I see in Perl. Okay, I can see Perl sustaining itself very well in the realm of applications and in enterprise applications with the current code base and the current existing companies that are currently using Perl for that. But how many people here, if you didn't know how to program in Perl, had to learn a language to write an application, would find a reason to learn Perl right now, as opposed to Python or Ruby or anything else? Okay, one person. The truth is, Perl's value doesn't lie in its uniqueness anymore. At one point, if you wanted to write an application for the web, you wrote CGI and you used Perl because it was there, it had lots of stuff. Today, you have a lot of choices, a lot of web frameworks, you have Python, and you have Ruby, very competitive, so why choose Perl? How many people would choose Perl for your next project? Okay, and without even, why? Because you know Perl, right? Okay, we know how to program Perl, we write stuff in Perl. That's what happened to me. I learned Perl, might have been a mistake, but now I know Perl, okay? And so when I go to write a program, I write programs in Perl. That happens automatically. I've many times said, hey, I want to write this in Python in order to, because I want to learn another language. And then I look at it, I don't know this. I don't know Python to this. And then I write in Perl. So, as in other constraints, programmers use language most comfortable. So there are other constraints. We have a content management system that was based on Plum. I'm not going to write for Perl. I'm not going to try to glue Perl to Plum. Not a good idea, okay? Python's perfectly good for that. It's already there. So, here's the trick. Being a great scripting language doesn't mean that Perl's bad. But that seems to be the general idea. If Perl's called a scripting language, it must be bad. It's not a programming language, it's a scripting language. Oh my gosh, we can't, it's a little bit weird to me because the fact that Perl's a fantastic scripting language and the general purpose programming language seems to be a big advantage. You can do whatever you want with it. I find it very odd that people use PHP for scripting, but they do. People who know PHP write command line programs in PHP to do scripts. That seems bizarre to me. There's a lot of Ruby being used for command line scripting. I don't know, Perl, that's all Perl, that's Perl's roots. So we can go back to what Perl did best and how it started, with all of CPAN and all of the modules in CPAN that are really oriented toward this sort of thing, and say to people, well, learn how to do this correctly. And you can use this also as a general purpose programming language, and they'll know it because they learned how to use it correctly. So here's the main thing. When you're dealing with new people, don't tell them scripting is bad. When you see people who are trying to do DevOps type work or do stuff that can use Perl, when you see how many people have seen bash scripts that they wish didn't exist? Okay, so get rid of them, right? Okay? So tell the person that's writing the stupid bash scripts for, you know, an int.d that look like unbelievable, I mean, I don't even know, I can't even read them. I look at those things and I'm going, how does that even work? I've tried to modify those programs and given up and written new ones for myself because I just can't figure it out. But with Perl, yes, you can write lousy Perl code, but you can write really good Perl code. You can write good scripts. So, help build the Perl community by teaching people to write scripts well and not telling them they're bad. You know, Matt gave up the script archive a long time ago. That was a bad time in our history, but it's not. So don't worry about that anymore. We can take it back. It's very important. So I would like to talk to you now. I've done my talking. I would like to hear from anybody that has any ideas about what I just talked about, because I want this to be an interactive thing here. I've just been talking to a lot of people in New York and in Philadelphia, specifically about thinking locally about these things. How many people here have in this talk, helped them to realize they might be able to do something in their own context, not in some big grand Perl community context, but around their own shop, in their own groups, in the Perl mongers groups, that kind of thing. Has anybody been thought about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have any ideas that might?
Well, there's a few maintenance scripts that could and should be written because some of our users in my company don't know who looks about security and need a reminder, at least need a reminder managers what not to do. So I can make something that watches the file system and just reports that to me and my manager what they're setting off wrong.
Are those the Perl scripts right now, or are
they don't exist yet?
Oh, okay.
I just remind them.
So here's an interesting point that you bring up, which is the idea that you may have scripts already within your organization, written in Perl or something else, but you may have ignored them because they're scripts and you write applications. You may have said, oh, that's somebody else's stuff, or even if you've seen things within your company that are systems administration related, and you're not doing that, but you've recognized that the code is bad, maybe it's even written in Perl. So there's an opportunity to help improve those and make the person that does Perl have better skills in Perl. This is a good idea. So what I've mostly wanted to do, and if it didn't take 20 minutes, that's okay too. This actually may be a miracle in that I'm actually speaking for less than hours. Okay, so you can enjoy that. This is a first time at PPW, first time under 2 hours talking. But think about it yourself. Talk to people that you know. Look at the scripts that are used in your organization. Try to promote Perl at that level because it bubbles up. I know from my own experience that I came to Perl because it was very good at doing systems administration type work. It ended up being the only language that I bothered to use personally. We use other things in-house. I don't really make my money programming anymore, but I write programs from time to time, and I invariably recommend Perl no matter how many times I tell myself I really ought to learn Python or something else. So teach other people to use Perl for their job. They can do it really well with that, and you'll find more Perl programmers in the community. Good programmers, not bad ones. Thank you very much. Oh, wait a minute.
Sorry, just one final comment. So, I moderate the Perl beginners mailing list.
Yes.
I haven't seen anybody saying the scripting is bad to anybody.
Right.
The problem that I see more often is that somebody shows up with a question, and in their zeal to try to point out all the things that the person could be doing better, they get overwhelmed.
Right.
It's not really usually all that helpful to take somebody's script that is almost working for them
Right.
and give them 5 paragraphs about why they need to turn on new script, because that's not actually helping them solve their problem.
Yes.
Right? So when you're helping people, you have to be helping them to solve the stuff they want to do,
Right.
and presenting the other stuff as this will make it easier, this will make it better, but they're focused on the result.
Oh, absolutely.
They don't want to learn how to program. They don't want to learn how to script. They want to get stuff done.
Right. So this is a very good point, and actually, it's slightly different than my point.
Yes, it
but
is.
it's absolutely related to it, which is that when you go to teach people things, teach them in a way that they can actually learn, instead of teaching them in a way that you think is ideologically correct. But this is also related in that there's another ideologically correct problem is don't write scripts, write programs. But certainly when you have a neophyte, and I use the word neophyte, you might have noticed that. That's very deliberate. Using the word newbie, you know, so my son, when he was about I think he was about 5 years old, 6 years old, and he was crying. He ran over to me and he was crying, and I said, "What's wrong?" He said, pointed to his brother, he said, "He called me a noob." And I realized that how bad the word was, because it was being used. He understood it. You're either a noob or a pro. And if you're not a pro, you're a lesser human being. So people call themselves newbies, and people say, "Oh, it doesn't matter." But the truth is, you're seeing a neophyte, which means a potential growth, and a newbie, which represents the deficit. One is the future, the other one is the past. So I'd like you to think about people as growing and help to water. You know, you can't pour a bunch of fertilizer and water on a plant and expect anything but a burnout. So that was his point. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. I want to talk to anybody about this who has an interest in this at any level. That is to say, whatever level of participation you want, formal, informal, just to tell me some things, to have a extensive discussion. Very flexible about that. Write to me, and I'm happy to talk to you. Thank you.